A Dino Crisis Creepypasta, the Forgotten Dino Crisis game. August 9th, 2024. It was a cold night in the fall of 1999, on October 31st, and it was Halloween Day. On a Friday, my mother took me to EB Games located at my local shopping mall. I went into the store and bought a physical copy of the game Dino Crisis to play on my PS1. As a young kid, I didn't know much about horror games. Still, I heard of a game that had to do with dinosaurs, and that's when I first played Dino Crisis on my PlayStation. When I would get home from a long day of school, I would load the disc into the console and play the game for hours, solving puzzles and shooting at different dinosaurs all afternoon and evening, getting transported to a different world. I would explore the environment and survive the terror and horrors of a dino-themed survival horror game, similar to playing Resident Evil, but without the zombies. I remember the thrill of navigating through the bloodstained corridors, the terror of hearing a raptor's snarl echoing through the vents, and the satisfaction of unloading my ammo into one of those prehistoric beasts. But there was something about the game that never sat right with me and made my skin crawl. Not just because of the dinosaurs, but because of something I couldn't quite explain. Years later, when I was older and out of high school, I was about in my mid-30s by now in 2024, I came across an old forum post from 2001 on the website IGN that I looked up using the Wayback Machine to browse the old IGN forum post claiming there was an unreleased version of Dino Crisis, a beta that was far more disturbing than the final product. The post described it as a survival horror experience like no other, but they warned against playing it. Naturally, I was intrigued, but curiosity got the better of me, so I reached out to the person who posted the link on the old IGN forum from 2001, and I emailed them. I waited several days for a response back from this person, who after much persistence, the user finally got back to me through an email message. We had been communicating back and forth by emailing each other. After much persuasion, the person agreed to email me the game file. They only gave me one piece of advice: don't let the game beat you. Another day had passed, and I received the game file's email from the IGN user, who attached it to the email. So I downloaded the attached game file onto my PC, and then burned the beta copy onto a blank disk. Over time, I modded my PS1 to play burnt copies of PS1 games, as I didn't have a lot of money to pay for official PS1 titles. I was only a kid. I loaded the game onto my modded PlayStation, and was immediately greeted by a corrupted version of the Capcom logo. The usual upbeat tune was replaced with a low, droning hum, and the emblem flickered like an old film reel. The title screen was different too. Instead of the familiar red Dino Crisis logo, a crude handwritten title read, Dino Crisis Lost Time. There are no menu options. Start. My heart raced as I pressed the button. The game began similarly to the original, with Regina, the main character, infiltrating the research facility. But the environment was different, darker, more claustrophobic. The facility was a maze of rusted metal and flickering lights, with a constant low hum that set my nerves on edge. The first thing I noticed was the absence of music. The game was dead silent, save for Regina's footsteps and the occasional distant roar that made my hair stand on end. When they finally appeared, the dinosaurs were not the sleek, fast-moving raptors I remembered. They were wrong. Their bodies were twisted, their skin hanging off in patches, and their eyes, milky white, lifeless. They moved unnaturally, jerky, like broken puppets on strings. The animations were erratic, and the once clear graphics were smeared with glitches and static. But it wasn't just the dinosaurs that were off. Regina herself started to change. At first, it was subtle. Her eyes seemed darker, her movements slower. But as I progressed, her model became more distorted. Her skin paled, her eyes sunken deep into her skull, and her voice, whenever she spoke, was warped, almost like a growl. The game's puzzles were more sinister too. I remember one involving a series of photographs smeared with blood and something else I couldn't identify. Solving it required piecing together a gruesome image of dismembered bodies, and once completed, the door opened with a horrifying creak. I swear I heard something breathing on the other side. As I delved deeper into the facility, the game became more unstable. The screen would occasionally flicker, revealing what looked like real photos. Gruesome crime scenes, medical experiments gone wrong, images of people with terrified expressions frozen on their faces. They would flash for only a second before the game resumed, but they burned into my mind, making me question what the developers had been thinking. The save points, marked by those familiar typewriters, were now gone. In their place were old, rotting desks with blood-stained journals. I tried to read them, but the text was always scrambled and illegible, except for a few words. "Help me, don't stop, and it's coming." Finally, I reached what should have been the final boss fight, but instead of the massive T-Rex, I found myself in a pitch-black room. Regina's breathing was the only sound as I blindly moved forward, the tension unbearable. Then the screen flashed out of nowhere, and I was face to face with something indescribable. A twisted, nightmarish creature, part human, part dinosaur, its eyes wide with a mixture of pain and rage. It lunged at Regina, and the screen cut to black. A single line of text appeared. "You let it beat you." The PlayStation powered off by itself, and when I tried to turn it back on, nothing happened. It was completely dead, like something inside it had been drained. Shaken, I ejected the disc and inspected it. The surface was pristine, no scratches, no marks, but I knew I had seen something I wasn't supposed to, which had been left behind in the game's code, hidden from the world. I never heard from the forum poster again. The forum itself was gone, and no trace of the post remained. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the game had done something to me. Now and then, I hear that low hum in the back of my mind, and I can't help but wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't let it beat me? I don't play survival horror games anymore. Some things are better left forgotten. Story written and created by Hunterian.